Welcome back to AWS On Air. My name's Aaron Hunter. I'm a senior technical trainer with AWS Training Certification, and today we're going to talk about AWS Power Hour with my good friend Trevor.
Hey everybody, Trevor Spires here. I'm a solutions architect with our new to AWS team here at AWS. So I work with customers who are just beginning their AWS journey. Excited to talk about our architecting Power Hour with everybody.
And this isn't just some random person here with me. Trevor was actually the host for AWS Power Hour, specifically the architecting series. So Trevor, you have AWS Training Certification on the page here. Can you tell me what this is and how we get there?
Sure. Well, you could simply go to awspowerhour.com, all one word, and you'll land at our landing page where it's a great starting off point for all of our Power Hour shows. So you can find the Architecting Power Hour we ran last October right here, as well as our other Power Hours that we have running in 2022.
Yeah, so I see we have specialty certifications as well. I believe we have a specialty certification challenge that is going until December 16th. So go ahead and click on the specialty certification link there, and then you'll see the challenge that you can join. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the architecting series. So can we take a look at that page?
Here we go.
Oh, that is the specialty one.
I did click on it. So yeah, here we are at the architecting landing page. This is where you can see all of the episodes that we ran through during the series and watch the on-demand content, as well as get a nice aggregate of all the resources and homework that we shared with our learners.
That's a lot of resources.
It's quite a bit of resources,
yeah.
But there's a lot to cover on this exam, you know?
So episode 1 is designing secure architectures. What was your favorite portion about that episode?
Well, you know, I've got a networking background, and so I'm a big fan of our network security services like AWS security groups and access lists and web application firewalls. But I think in general, you know, for this certification, security's got to be a top priority for anybody building in AWS. So it's just exciting to teach some of the foundational security concepts to our new learners.
Yeah, security is a top priority at AWS. So much so that everything's secure by default. Amazon S3 buckets are secure by default. Don't let anyone look at your buckets. We're live here at reInvent in Las Vegas, and there's this person dressed up in an S3 bucket costume, and they dip down, and I was able to peer into the bucket. So, hey, keep your buckets secure. Don't make them public unless it's very intentional.
That's right. If you see the bucket walking around, take a selfie with it, and they've got some super special secret stickers they're passing out. So,
awesome. So, Trevor, I can see here that we have FAQs as well. How important are the FAQs for people who are just getting started?
I think the FAQs are a really important part for new learners, right? I mean, especially if you're just learning the cloud, you can go through some exam curriculum or content, but you're always going to have questions about like, hey, how does this storage service, what is S3 object storage versus file storage, for example? So during the FAQ section, you get to ask questions to the experts. We have folks on the phone there for you as a resource, and that's for all of our Power Hour series.
Yeah, and what's really cool about AWS Power Hour is when you tune in live, you can chat with Trevor live. And we actually do have a chat, so go ahead and put your questions there, and we'll see what we can do to get answers for you. But what we can do instead is, because the Power Hour is already done, it's in the past, it's not live right now, we have more coming for you in 2023. What year are we in right now, 2022? So in 2023, there's going to be more Power Hour sessions, but you can watch these sessions on demand. So you can watch Trevor on demand, you can watch you had some really fun polls.
That's right, yeah. I mean, the curriculum for the Power Hours is really built around exam questions, right? We want to work backwards from those questions and teach you all the different services. I can give actually an example of one of the questions and kind of how we run through that with our learners, right? So a big part of taking AWS exams is not just studying the knowledge, but there are some skills involved in sitting a certification exam if you haven't before, right?
That's really cool. Before we get started, because you have this really cool exam sample question page up. How do we get this?
Yeah, of course. So if you just go to the main certification page for any of our certifications, in this case the SA Associate, you'll see we've got some example questions here as well as our exam guide. We'll get to the exam guide in a sec, but that's really your blueprint for what services you need to study for the exam.
You say blueprint, I say cheat sheet, potato, potato.
Potato. So I'll take you over to just a quick example question to give you an idea of what we do live in the series, right? So here's a question about cross-origin resource sharing in S3, right? I'm not going to go through the full question here, but On exams, they tend to be multiple choice questions, and a big strategic way to ensure that you're answering more questions right is process of elimination, right? So we walk through what the right answer is with our learners, but also what the wrong answers are and why, so that way whenever you show up on the exam day, you know how to approach these questions and go through that process of elimination. I mean, the passing score for this exam is about a 720, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a C. So imagine if you can eliminate half of all the answers, that's pretty good odds. You might be able to squeeze your way through with that process of elimination.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're called distractors. And what I typically do is I'll take, let's say, 4 or 5 questions or the response options, and I'll kind of trim it down to 2. And if I'm still not sure, can we do exam tips? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, go for it.
So an exam tip is if you still aren't sure and you're getting ready to actually take that exam, you're looking at the question and you're like, oh, I have no idea. Mark it for review, take a guess on the answer, come back to it later. And that's a good strategy.
That's a great strategy because sometimes you won't know the answer and you'll get asked a question 10 questions later that'll jog your memory of, oh, that's right. It is a S3 policy that I can use to restrict access or whatever it is, but absolutely. Mark them and go back. And yeah, I find, you might have time at the end to go back and really review all the questions even. I find myself going through reviews, and oftentimes, or every now and then, I'll have clicked the wrong answer not knowing, so it's always good to double check.
It's always good to double check. Do you have some kind of like a pace? When you're taking an exam, do you set a cadence for yourself?
I do personally. I always take the total time for the exam, and then I divide that by the number of questions, right? So, like, let's say it's a 120-minute exam and there's 60 questions. That means that I have about 2 minutes per question. So I would try to go a little faster than that, so I have time to review at the end. But definitely, whatever exam you're taking, know the number of questions and the amount of time required.
Yeah.
So that way you can keep on pace and not fall behind.
Yeah, I think I do the same thing, about 2 minutes per question. So my rule of thumb is every 10 questions should be 20 minutes. And if I start falling behind, I can just start marking things for review and then come back to it later. And what I found is that pace gives me about a half hour to 40 minutes of buffer time, and I'm less stressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's always stressful taking an exam.
It is always stressful.
Yeah.
It does get easier the more you do, but yeah.
You said that.
Yeah.
So for me, what we can see here is we have our practice questions up, the sample exam questions, and we're talking about one for Amazon S3.
Sure.
But I think you covered Amazon S3 in episode 3, is that right?
We covered S3 throughout the series, actually, because, and I think that's a nice way to introduce the different domains that exist throughout the exam, right? Because this exam is focused on 4 primary domains: secure architectures, resilient architectures, high-performing architectures, and cost-optimized architectures, which a service like S3 can apply to any of those domains, right?
Yeah.
So that's a service we cover throughout the series.
Well, because way back in 2006, Amazon S3, SQS, and EC2 were the first services launched. So S3 is like the OG, baby.
It is OG. I've heard it called the 8th wonder of the world.
The 8th wonder of the world with 11 nines.
With 11 nines. That's a lot of nines.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at these different domains. We have design secure architectures. That one seems like it's a pretty heavy hitter with 30%.
Absolutely. Almost a third of the exam, 30% weighted towards that category. So I think just further validation of the fact that security really is priority number 1 and everybody's responsibility in the cloud. So,
but how do I know what's in that domain?
I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
We'll continue looking at this wonderful exam guide and scroll down to our designing secure architecture section, right? So if you look in here, you're going to get a few different things, but we're looking for knowledge of, and we're going to list all of the services and major features that are in scope for the exam. And so this is a great, I mean, it's easy, right, when you're studying for an exam to jump right into some content, but don't skip this step. Spend an hour just really trying to synthesize what's on this before you start studying, to make sure that you're going down the right track. And you might even find, if you're a little experienced with AWS, some of these topics you already are familiar with, and you can spend less time studying on.
And you mentioned experience, and it says like knowledge of. Do I have to be an expert in any of these?
No, absolutely not. In fact, there is no prerequisites to taking this exam. We do suggest you have about a year of hands-on experience with the cloud or some significant experience working in technology to sit this exam. But I'll say I know people who have sat this exam with no experience at all.
Yeah.
So if that's what if it's an exam you want to go for, whether you're experienced or not, I would say give it a try.
Yeah, so Trevor, we're going to kind of bounce up and down this exam guide for a second. You mentioned experience, experience, experience. Do we have any recommendations on how much experience someone should have?
We do. You can find this in the exam guide or on the main page for our certification, but you can see our targeted exam, our
target candidate description. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So
I see it on the screen here.
it is on the screen. So it's about a year of experience is what we're going to suggest, but not a hard requirement. If you're a go-getter, you might be able to knock it out before. And
yeah.
I came into it with 10 years of experience before I sat this exam myself, so it can go in either direction.
Well, you have a lot of experience. Not everyone does. At least 1 year of hands-on experience. Hands-on, that's the key.
Hands-on, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, the hands-on in the cloud especially is such an important part of the learning process. Because really, what is the point of the certification if you can't go put it into action in the field
you have to
afterwards?
apply. You're applying something, but I believe so. There's AWS Skill Builder where they can go do some labs, and there's ramp-up plans and guides to kind of help people. But you walk through all of that in the AWS Power Hour, so really cool.
Yep, that's right. All of those can be found on that main landing page with our resources. But another attribute of the Power Hour is certainly we do training and practice questions, and we're also providing homework for our students. Right?
Homework.
That's right. Homework.
I love homework. My dog loves homework.
Yeah.
Well, that's the phrase. I don't have a dog. I have a cat. But goldfish ate homework. Who knows? So if someone needs some hands-on experience, is there a specific product? We talked about Skill Builder. Is there anything where they can maybe gamify it a little bit?
Yeah, so if you want to get hands-on experience, there's two things that I would take a look at. Absolutely, Skill Builder. We have a lot of great hands-on labs within the Skill Builder platform that you can check out. And how a lot of folks start learning is just with our AWS free tier. You do need to go in and understand when you may start incurring charges to ensure that you're not breaking the bank in your studies, but most of our major services covered in this exam do have a free tier, and that's a great way to get in and start experimenting.
That's really cool, and I've watched every single one of your episodes, and I think you mentioned CloudQuest a couple times during them too.
That's right, CloudQuest. We all learn different ways, right?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of CloudQuest. It's like a gamified way to learn a lot of different. Actually, I don't know all the exams that are covered. I know that SA Associate is. What else can you do?
They have challenges, and they get badges with the challenges. We're not here to talk about them, but let's go ahead and give them a plug. But CloudQuest has different badges and challenges. There's Solutions Architect challengers, badge. Words are so hard at the end of a Thursday. But challenges and badges, there's serverless, there's machine learning, there's a brand new one. There's a sixth one that came out this week on Monday, data analytics. That's the only one I don't have yet.
Oh, I got to check that one out.
I know. I got super addicted to playing CloudQuest. It was so fun. Anyway, go check it out. Trevor, can we jump back to the episode guides and kind of walk through them and kind of give people an idea of what to expect on each episode? We covered episode 1 here. What's on episode 2?
Episode 2 is all about designing resilient architecture. So we spend a lot of time focusing on disaster recovery and high availability within AWS, understanding which services are highly available as a managed service versus which services that you as a builder need to make sure that you're designing high availability around, as well as some kind of common terminology within that space, RTO, RPO.
Recovery time objective and recovery point objective. I like to think of those as like playing video games. CloudQuest, playing video games and being able to, I use the analogy of jumping over lava. You put the dots together, figure out the video game you want, but jumping over lava before you go rescue the princess. What if you jump over and you land in the lava? That's going to be a recovery point objective. The recovery time objective is how long it takes for you to get back to that lava and successfully jump over it again. Anyway, we're not here to teach stuff and do analogies, but we are here to talk about more episodes.
So we'll move on to high-performing architectures, right? So in this episode, we talk about scalable storage, compute, and database solutions. So a big reason customers choose to adopt the cloud is that we can scale up and down on demand with many of our services. And so when you're designing your applications, you have to keep this in mind of how you can scale up, but also scale down, which I would say relates to our next episode, cost optimize architectures.
The right size, right sizing your application, right sizing your infrastructure.
Right sizing your infrastructure and building in a way that way you're not running at capacity that you don't necessarily need, right?
Yeah.
I work with a lot of customers that are leveraging our compute services, right? EC2, our virtual machine service, is a really common one. But if you look at different ways you can cost optimize compute with a service like Lambda for certain use cases, we see customers saving between 70 and 90% on certain workloads by leveraging serverless compute architectures.
There's also an advantage there because it's serverless, so they don't have an operating system to patch. They don't have the same vulnerabilities, and AWS takes care of patching the Lambda instances, the underlying servers, because even though it's serverless, there's a server somewhere, and part of the shared responsibility model, we take that on.
That's absolutely right. And going back to high availability within your architectures, Lambda is one of those services that is a regional service. So you don't have to design across availability zones like you do with some of our other compute services like EC2.
And you can also have it as a Lambda at edge function, so you can run it at the edge as well.
Lambda is personally my favorite service for many reasons. It's just like glue in AWS. You can do a little bit of everything. It's not, I shouldn't have said glue because that's another AWS service, but just ignore that one. So,
all right, so we have about a minute left, and there's a review, and then also you have episode 6, where you start to talk about practice and the coming back to the hands-on component. Practice makes perfect.
Absolutely right. So, would love to have you check out the series, watch some of the on-demand videos. If you have questions, that's how we engage with a lot of our learners throughout the series.
What's your alias?
Trev Spires. You can just search Trevor Spires on LinkedIn and you'll find me there.
You know what? I think you have it on the videos, right? So go watch the video. His alias is on the videos. Go ahead and check that out. We also have a link to his LinkedIn directly at the top of the page. How did he get there? awspowerhour.com. And then go ahead and look for the architecting series. That's your call to action, everyone. My buddy Trevor, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Aaron.
And thanks everyone for watching AWS On Air. Stay tuned for more.